We're live from the TCP booth in Las Vegas. That's right, folks. We're just waiting on a couple people, and I'll update you in a second if they're going to be even later. But we're waiting on Colleen Harper, the newly anointed executive director of the IES, and Brianne Musselman, I believe, might join us. We don't know, but we're just waiting on them right now. So sit tight. We're going to have a great talk with those three, with Greg Ehrich, myself in Toronto, and Greg Ehrich live in Las Vegas with Colleen Harper from the IES. Just sit tight, folks. So you guys should be able to hear me in your mics now. And I'm just letting you know that we're already live. And so right now on the screen, there's a coming soon, TCP and Get a Grip on Lighting live. Brianne, can you give me a quick hello?
Hello?
And Colleen.
Or hello.
There you go.
Oh, okay.
And Greg.
Hi.
Okay,
Colleen.
Scotty.
And
We're already
me.
live,
Hi.
folks. So if you're listening, hello. But just, you know, it is a live stream. So we started at 2. So, Scott, if you can just slightly turn the camera over a little bit so that Brianne is more in the picture. Just for our live. So everyone that's watching. Just a little bit
You
back
want
left.
me out of it?
Yeah, there you go,
There you go.
right there. That's nice and centered on everybody. A little bit more over to Greg's side. And so, folks, thank you for being so patient with us here if you're watching live. We're here today with Colleen Harper, the newly anointed Executive Director of the Illuminating Engineering Society, and Brianne Musselman, who I've interviewed before. Brianne, it's been a couple years since we spoke, who is the educational consultant for the IES, and Gregory Ehrich. How's it going? Greg, let's start off with you.
It's good. We're good.
Yeah, well, first we just got to touch on where we're at, okay? We're at the TCP booth. Best view in the show, I think. We're
Absolutely.
up
Yeah,
here.
that was impressive.
See everything, and a couple of items just to touch on is their flat panel accent. We talked about it in the last show a little bit. You can see them right over here, really cool. It's not just any old plain flat panel. They've got different lenses that you can actually make it unique and give you the light. So check these flat panel accent lights out in their booth while we're at Light Fair.
You got to go to tcpi.com. Come on, Ellis is the return of the king of lighting, Ellis Yan. We love those guys. Proud members of the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors. And Greg, let's get you start off. I want to hear about Colleen Harper's first Light Fair. What do you think?
Oh, okay. So, of course, I have nothing to compare it to, right? I started at IES 3 months ago. I have heard a lot about Light Fair. I've participated in a lot of meetings about Light Fair and heard kind of the evolution of it over many years. And also heard, of course, about the October show that they had in 2021. in New York and how different it was. So frankly, I didn't really know what to expect. When we got here yesterday, the lines were so incredibly long to get in. I was blown away and very pleased to see that. There seems to be a lot of energy and excitement to see people again. I've met a lot of IES members, a lot of non-members, people who of course are a part of the lighting community, and everyone is thrilled to be here, seeing people in person, seeing products and so forth. So I have to say, I mean, it seems incredibly successful from my perspective. And as the executive director of IES, I am very excited about what this means for the next Light Fair next year in New York.
Is it
what about you, Brianne? How about you?
Hang on one second. I want to ask Colleen a couple more questions.
Yeah.
I mean,
Sure.
this is an enormous industry. Brianne, we'll give you time in a second, but I'm just kind of hot on this. This is a big industry, and most people that are outside the industry aren't aware of how big and technically advanced and everything else it is. Was it a little bit intimidating to see the scope of the industry even after COVID?
Oh. Yes. So, I came from the Audio Engineering Society, where we had a large convention also. And the first time I attended an AES convention was a little bit later in the year, or a little bit later after I started at the organization than at IES. So I'm not, of course, this is not my first time attending a convention of this size, but I have to say, not really understanding the lighting industry before now, I am blown away by the size, but also I was saying to Brianne yesterday and a couple other people, this is like the largest small community or smallest large community, because literally everyone knows each other. And so it's like there's so many people here, and and you're walking around and everything is crazy except everyone knows each other. So that, I think, has actually been a little bit more intimidating because I don't have that experience, right? Like I'm walking around and I don't know a lot of people. So that has been the harder part, very exciting. And there's obviously, like, I'm excited to be a part of this industry now and a part of the community, but that has been the more intimidating piece than just the size of the show in general.
And then we were going to pass it over to Brianne for her feedback. How many light fairs have you been to now?
I mean, probably 10,
10, okay.
10 or 11.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I love Light Fair, and I think Edison Report called it a giant reunion or a big reunion in their headline, and I was like, that's exactly how this feels. The energy is crazy high, which is something I wasn't expecting, I'll be honest. I will also say, though, to Colleen's point, it is, you spent time away from colleagues, you get together with them, and it's like, we just haven't missed a beat.
Yeah.
And it's really great because the community is so strong that, as the technology evolves and that kind of thing, of course we talk about those things, and, we're excited about that too. But I think somebody at the booth yesterday, well, Dan Blitzer, a lot of people probably know Dan. Dan said, well, the best part of Light Fair is the people, because the people are the product, and I mean the product developers and product salespeople and that kind of thing. And then, but the people are also your friends who are using the product, and so you have these like great conversations, and that energy is back this year. I mean, even with the smaller show, I think it's there.
Yeah, no, I'm really enjoying it for sure. And Colleen, your background, you have nothing to do with lighting.
Right.
Right.
That's right. Yeah.
How did you get into it? I mean, how did you come about this role?
That's a great question. So my whole background is in nonprofit management, and that's what I have my master's in also. So I had moved to New York back in 2018 from the Washington, D.C. area, which is associations. So in the United States, D.C. is where most associations are based. The second highest city is Chicago, membership-based organization. So once I moved to New York, for personal reasons in 2018, I started working for AES, which is based in New York, and then, got us through COVID, and was actually, we were very successful getting through a very challenging year. And then I saw this IES opportunity, and just to be very candid from how vibrant it is and how wonderful the people are. But the reason that I got to IES to begin with was because it seemed like, for what I do for a living, it was an excellent opportunity. I also really enjoyed working for an ANSI accredited standard development organization. I think that that is incredible and something that IES, of course, is sets us apart in so many ways. So I'm very proud of that. And that is something, while AES actually did set standards, it was not to this type of robust process, like going through something that is so serious and important to the industry that it serves. So again, for many reasons, this is how I ended up here, but it was not actually to do with lighting itself.
Yeah.
What's the plan?
What's the plan? So the plan is to grow, right? I think there's a lot of, sorry, Brian. I think that there are, I should rephrase, there are many unknowns and uncertainties right now. Like with people coming out of COVID, membership-based organizations, not just IES or anyone involved in the lighting industry, but associations in general, kind of, unless you were a medical society through COVID, and so everyone wanted to join you because you had all of the resources that they needed, suffered a little bit in the sense that people didn't have, or companies didn't have, what they consider to be discretionary income to support memberships and to support attendance at events, and of course in-person events just weren't happening at all. So for us, it's no secret that Light Fair is such a huge piece of how we make money and where our revenue comes from. Fair. I mean, optimism for the future. So we're really excited about going into next year, and we're very committed to Light Fair and the success of Light Fair because it is a wonderful event. But what else can IES do to generate revenue that we haven't done before? How can we diversify our revenue so that we are still committed to Light Fair, and we want Light Fair to be successful because it's important to us and to the lighting community, but we also need to have other ways of being a sustainable organization. So what that looks like now is we went through a restructure a couple of months ago so that we could better contain our expenses and get us through this more uncertain time. And then we're hoping essentially to start growing from now. Like, this is the time where we have a lot of ideas. As an association person, as someone not from the lighting industry, I have a number of ideas, and I think we have a lot of opportunities that IES has never really capitalized on before, monetizing some things perhaps that we haven't considered doing that we haven't done in the past, and just generally coming up with more business cases for things that we do, instead of thinking like, oh, this is a good idea, let's just go ahead and do it and see if it's successful. Like, what is the data that we have to indicate that this would be successful or that there's a need for this? And hopefully, of course, approaching things in that way will help our bottom line ultimately. And then we'll, again, hope to hire and, just grow generally as our membership and our revenue and all of the ways that an organization could possibly grow.
I think you guys do that by producing technical memoranda and education. Like, to me, the number one goal of the IES is to produce standards that other people will follow, and then to educate people to those standards, and then general education. I'm not sure how much revenue can come from the core mission of the IES. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I 100% agree with you. And I know Brianne agrees that, and we actually had a board meeting a couple of days ago where we were like, standards and education. I mean, we are uniquely positioned to provide exceptional education in conjunction with our standards. I think that there's a correct perception that we exist to provide standards, right? Like, that's what we do. However, just that by virtue of doing that doesn't mean that we can be a sustainable organization. We have to make sure that we then develop education or educational resources that people would want to buy or would want to join to have access to. I think that there's some other ways, though, that just in our events, non-Light Fair events, for example, that we can engage with companies, or we can do other virtual, it goes back to education, I suppose, we could do other virtual learning opportunities that aren't specifically tied to a standard, but could be something that emerging professionals might need, or something that we could with schools who don't have robust lighting programs. So there are a lot of things out there that, again, a tradition, or not a traditional, but most associations monetize.
I would call those side hustles. You know what I mean? Like, that's not the purpose of the IES.
I don't agree with that.
No, because
I don't agree with that.
Let me explain myself, Colleen. Let me explain myself. So, yes, I do think it's wonderful for the IES to monetize different events and raise money from creating things that have value. But I do think the number one thing that you do is create standards. And right now, the lighting industry is changing faster and quicker than it ever did before, and people are dying for changes to standards, and that's for outdoor lighting, dark sky awareness, darkness restoration. The IES needs to get on that right now because that train is coming very quickly. There's a ton of information coming out on dark skies all over the world. And you guys, like for me, you guys did the 5 principles, but that was 2 years ago now. The 5 principles for responsible outdoor lighting is maybe 2 years ago. And it's time to jump on that and start creating standards. And then all this health effects and circadian stuff, people need to know what the truth is. And I think that's the IES's job. Greg Ehrich, correct me if I'm wrong.
To some degree, but I see what they're saying. They need money to be able to do that stuff too, right?
So that's exactly what I was going to say. Okay. I'm sorry, Brian, if I could
go ahead.
I don't disagree about what our value is, right, to the industry. We need to set standards. Like that is the reason we exist. The problem with that, I mean, not the problem with that, but we have to be a sustainable business. So those two things are not mutually exclusive. We have to do them in conjunction with each other. So we can call them side hustles, but we have to do those to be able to exist, to set standards, to develop standards. So that is why I disagree with you. I mean, we can call them whatever, but those events, those revenue generating opportunities are so important to us, because if we don't do them, then we won't exist.
Yeah, but
I think, Brianne, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But hang on one second. But the committees are run by volunteers, Brianne. So it's not a cost, is it, to get a committee up and running that's going to set a standard? Am I correct about that, Brianne?
Oh, I don't know that I would agree with that. I mean, it still takes staff support to facilitate the resources they need to be as well organized as they are, and they are exceptionally well organized.
Yes.
I would say, but I also take issue a little bit with, I'm now in the restructure, the director of standards and education, right? So I have our content management is my thing now. Let's just call it that. And on the larger scale, there's some modalities and some other ways in which that we should be maybe taking advantage of more outreach and more asynchronous material and that kind of thing from a revenue perspective, revenue generation to support the standards development. But also, yes, the 5 principles came out 2 years ago, and we signed on for that. But we just released RP43 last week with 3 other standards. But on top of that, I think, we meet with IDA every month. We meet with the National Park Service every month. So there are educational initiatives that go on where standards, based on the robust process that they go through, take longer. They just do. So I think the key to that, actually, to your criticism about the length of time that we've gone maybe quiet about certain issues publicly, is not what's happening privately. And on top of that, there's ways in which education can fill that gap until the robust process of a standard can be completed. And I think that people really underestimate the importance of a consensus-based document. And on top of that, we've got mixed interest in IES. Let's be honest, right? If I'm an outdoor luminaire manufacturer, I'm going to have a hard time with dark sky, and I'm not making a value judgment there, but I think the IES's job is to make sure people are heard, and we go through a consensus process. And that means, though, that education, and we talked about this with the IDA, education can bridge that gap of like, here's how to approach a minimum standard of care via a standard, but here's why education is critical to teach you why that minimum standard of care might not be good enough, or it's not enough, or maybe it's too much. So I think education is that gap, really, of like, the standards are great, but they can't think for you. They can just give you a framework by which to approach things. And then we have to supplement it. And to your point, it has to happen as quickly as the issues are happening, like in ID, or, with Dark Sky Association and things like that. So I think that supplemental piece is maybe where we get some of the most criticism, actually, is that we stay quiet during a standards process development because it's the right thing to do to let that come out. It's like talking to a jury. Like, you don't go to a jury and talk about the case. You leave standards to the robust process that we follow for a reason. But again, I think we've got some modernization to do on how we educate people about what we're up to. And I think the perception, you're not particularly stuff like that. We know that criticism. We've heard it, and combat it all the time. I mean,
Well, the only thing I would say is that there's no consensus that light pollution is good. Like light pollution is probably the number one most solvable problem in front of the lighting industry. In fact, Colleen, I know that you're maybe coming in to get a grip on lighting here hot, but I think the number one revenue generator for the industry, so like the IES, would be setting the standards, would be to really tackle the light pollution issue. It's an environmental issue. Yes, it's not climate change, but it's an environmental issue that the lighting industry can solve. And we talk a lot about light pollution in the Restoring Darkness podcast that we produce. And I don't feel like the IES is 100% on board with that. And as a newbie, as someone who has no roots in the industry, Colleen, I'm inviting you to embrace the darkness restoration issue for the IES and just tell everyone in the room that, hey, we're the people that can solve this problem. And, we don't need this consensus from people that want to create light pollution. We want to get people to the table that can really solve this issue. Colleen, will you join the darkness restoration movement?
Well, I have to say, I'm really hearing about this for the first time. Maybe I should be embarrassed to say that. I don't know. I don't know that I am educated enough after 3 months to adequately respond to that. I have to do, there's a very steep learning curve. I, of course, want to be on the right side of things, of history, of everything. So I will commit to learning about it as much as I can. And I'm assuming that some of that will come from Brienne and listening to your podcast, the team.
Yeah.
So I'll commit to doing that too. But I don't know. Again, I just don't know enough. I just don't want to say anything that could get me in trouble now or later.
Sure, I get it. You're on a live stream. I get it.
I'm very open to learning and
let me lay it out for you.
Learning from whoever wants to.
Let me lay it out for you.
Please.
Okay. There's absolutely no ethical case for light pollution. There's no and Brienne knows this as well. It's not a secret. It's just the lighting industry. I was so excited when they hired you, and I couldn't wait to tell you about this issue, because we need an outsider. We need someone else to say, hey guys, it's very important that we solve the light pollution issue. And that's why I was hoping to have an outsider take this role. Because Brienne, it's tough. There's so many people in the lighting industry that have been doing things the same way for so long on the outdoor lighting issue. And, people don't want to embrace it. But it's the single biggest opportunity in front of us. We have an ethical and moral duty to solve this problem. Light pollution is out of control. It is a massive environmental issue. And, again, I know you can't commit right here with me on the live stream, but I'm inviting you very strongly. One of the things that you could really put a stake in the ground where you could have a legacy is if you force the IES and the lighting industry to tackle that issue. Greg, am I crazy here, or what do you think?
You're not crazy. No, I mean, we talk about it a lot, and
sure.
It's good from a business standpoint too for lighting people, right? Because now we got to go replace everything in a way. So
Yeah.
You look at fixing a lot of the issues that are out there, but it is a major issue to tackle. There's going to be a lot that has to go into it, and we kind of put some documents together on our end too, but it's going to revolve around cities and governments getting on board and enforcing it.
Yeah, and educating the people who help them navigate their own ordinances and things like that. Like, I've worked on city ordinances. I know exactly what it feels like to argue with, people who want their facades lit for safety and security or perception of safety and security, but then we have people who are concerned about migratory patterns and other light pollution issues. And I think that that's the job of the IES here. Yes, is to give some ethical direction. Don't get me wrong. I think clearly there's no argument for light pollution, but we still house a lot of other considerations about perception of brightness, safety and security, pedestrian and autonomous vehicle development. What does that look like in terms of, if we don't have street poles every so often, how does that affect autonomous vehicles and the way in which that dependency occurs? What I'm getting at is that the IES's role has to remain as complex as our members, and I don't want to oversimplify that. So it doesn't mean I'm not willing to take a position.
Brienne, all we have to do is tell people
doing
to
it
follow
the right way.
But Brienne, all we have to do is tell them to follow the 5 principles of responsible outdoor lighting. Like, that covers all of that, right? So if we just say, look, guys, we're not talking about selling less lights.
There is a scope.
Oh, we're having a little bit of choppiness here. Uh-oh, I'm cutting out a bit.
Yeah,
Sorry,
take
guys.
over for IDA.
Right. No, I
Okay,
think you
yeah,
guys
we're on a
should.
delay and
I think you guys should
I
take
hear
over
that.
the
I hear
idea.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, like I think that,
I
that
hear you. I don't agree, but I hear you.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, hang on. Let me just, and again, this is a discussion. What I'm saying is that anybody that goes against this should just be presented with the 5 principles of responsible outdoor lighting. And if that's from the IES and the
I
IDA,
agree.
that's their joint document, and say
Yes.
this is what is
I think they
right
were
and ethically
fantastic.
right. What's that?
I think that the 5 principles are committing to that is very different than taking over another organization and or bypassing the consensus-based standard for the sake of a specific agenda. Now, whether I personally agree with the agenda or not isn't really up for debate. We're still an antibody. But I agree with you that the 5 principles can still be a framework by which people ethically consider what their role in it is. I was a lighting designer. I know what my role was. I also know what I was paid to do. And so sometimes being paid to light somebody's plaza or facade is not the same thing as being ethically able to, from a business case, to keep going back to revenue. I was on billable time once. It's hard to turn down work even if you're ethically or personally aligned with the 5 principles.
Brianne,
and again, all I'm saying is there's a reflection of our industry.
Brianne, it's impossible for me, the host of the Restoring Darkness podcast, to sell a dark sky friendly system to an outdoor lighting client. It's almost impossible. Like, that's how difficult it is. But that's because the industry, we need to have industry alignment on the issue, because anyone else will sell them a light polluting lighting system with for a lower price and with more light. And that's what we have to overcome. That's very difficult. It's very difficult, and that's why we need leadership from the IES.
I think, yes, I think we need education and leadership from the IES,
Correct.
right? Like
Agreed.
we could pick all sorts of things to focus on, including circadian entrainment and other light and health related issues, as you pointed out earlier. But again, we have to remain committed to the quality of the work that we've been doing. And so again, I will say that education is the way to bypass, not bypass, but it's the way to supplement who we are in the process of a standard being built.
There you go.
And that's important in our business case. If we don't sell get way worse in the long.
We're having some
doesn't mean it's not important.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
we had a little bit of technical difficulties there on the stream. Sorry, guys. I cut out a little bit, and you guys cut a little bit.
Sure, no, you're okay.
Greg, let's turn it back over to you here, bud.
Yeah, I think it's just kind of what going forward. What's the plan on the education side? I mean, I know we've talked a lot about it. Is there any specifics, or is it just gathering all the info and working through?
Yeah, I mean, one of the exciting things about being back together with IES staff, which is something I work remote in Detroit still, and so, one of the beneficial pieces of being here is that I've been talking with the standard staff. Pat McGillicuddy's unbelievable. Dan Osmankowski just joined us, and Zoe Milgramer is in research. She's back in New York, but we're all in this phase of learning how to take some of our best content, which lives in our standards, it does, and through those experts, and making educational pieces come out in tandem or in supplement to a standard as it's happening, instead of, like I said earlier, that criticism that we stay quiet for too long. Sure. How do we fix that perception that we're working on it, that we care, that we have SMEs who, the people who are writing the standard are often the people we tap to do the educational piece. Yeah. And so how do we make the most of their time, because they are volunteers, right? We know that their time is limited and valuable. The e-learning portal has been amazing for us. We have over 5,000 people who are utilizing that. And I think that's a huge, important piece of who we are now, because people want to learn at the time that they can. Maybe they're on the treadmill at home. Maybe they're, I don't know, it's after bedtime for kids. I mean, I think that I think it was a huge progress. And we got the Light Fair Innovation Award for that. And I think that was a lot of progress, because it meant that, like, if you want to learn more about lighting, you don't have to do it on our schedule. Like, we're here for you. Yep. And if you can't make a local section meeting, we also get that. I mean, of course, we support being in person, but I think the e-learning portal presents a pretty cool future for us.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to see a lot of uptake on that. Yeah, I'd like to see a lot of uptake on the e-learning portal.
final thoughts on the IES? Anything you want to touch on?
Yeah, no, I mean, I appreciate you guys having us on. This is a wonderful opportunity. I will certainly do a good job of educating myself. I hope you won't hesitate to reach out. I don't think that you will, but I hope you won't hesitate to reach out. I think, there is a lot of optimism. There are a lot of changes, and we're dealing with those, but there's a lot of optimism, and we're very excited for IES and for LightFair and the lighting industry just in general moving forward. So I'm looking forward to meeting more people at our events later this year, and then of course again LightFair next year in New York.
And you guys know how important energy is, right, to all of us. You guys are energetic, the taking a stance, the making sure the passionate people are heard. You guys are a huge part of that. Believe me, I appreciate it because the passionate people make our industry go round. And so Colleen's getting some first doses of that passion, but it's been impressive how quickly she accepts that as being a part of who the lighting industry is. So I think that's a good thing moving forward. And you guys, I know you guys are a big part of it. We've talked about it before. I mean, last time I was here, we talked about TM21, a little drier than this.
Yeah, a little bit drier. Yeah. But you know what? I have really embraced this restoration issue in my heart. And I'm very passionate about it. And
I know you do. Yeah.
I see forward, and I really would love this industry to solve its own problems. Like how wonderful it is to say nobody has to admit they're wrong or anything like that. It's just about this is the right way for us to go. And I'm inviting everybody I can and to join that. So I'm glad you guys were able to hear my passion, as Brianne says. But what about your conference? Is it on in August this year? Are you guys hosting an in-person conference?
Yeah.
We are. Yep, New Orleans in August.
It's going to be hot, but coming out.
It's going to be very hot. So please join us.
Yeah, the IES conference.
And then we have the SALC conference. We have the SALC in October.
Yeah. In October. So your upcoming
also
events
in person in Dallas.
One is in August and the other's in October. Are there any before that, or is that the next two on the schedule?
We have some virtual things, right? We have some webinars and stuff happening, but the in-person events are those two. Yeah. Yes, annual conference and then SALC.
Where can people
see the members again? Can't wait.
Where can people watching this find those webinars and register for all those events? At IES.org?
Yes.
You got it.
Yep. The best place to go. And we recently launched a new website, so it's I think easier to use for many people. Yeah. So please head there.
Exciting times, folks. And if you made it to this live stream, go to IES.org. And of course, Greg, we got to thank the good folks at TCP, Elysion and Leslie Matt and everyone there for hosting us.
That's right.
We should thank them for this beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Having a great booth, awesome product, innovative stuff. So check it out.
Great leaders. So go to tcpi.com.
I'm going to go look at the flat panels.
So go check them out at booth number 2229. And for right now, we're out. We'll be back. Greg, when are we back? Tell the folks listening when we're going to be back.
Potentially in a few minutes or at 1.
Okay, potentially in a few minutes. So
stay tuned. In between.
Colleen, thank you so much. Welcome to the industry.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye, Brianne.
Happy to be here.
Again.
Thanks.
Bye.
Great to see you. Yep.
Bye.